Hello! It's the Pageant Nerd here with part 3 of my series, Scoring Miss Universe.
You will see her score at home, but we do not see it in the theater.
In part 1, I looked at the overall history of televised computer scoring at Miss Universe. In part 2, the trends and the most consistent performers and nations across the various rounds of competition during the televised scoring eras, 1978 to 2002 and 2007 to 2010. In this third and final part, I'll delve into some of the more noteworthy stories on this subject, the controversies, the stumbles, the late surges and more. And I'll wrap up looking at the all-time best scores in each round of competition. That's a lot to cover, and this is by no means a definitive collection, just the stories that continue to shock, surprise, and entertain me after all these years. Here we go. As we would all agree, it's certainly not a given that winning prelims is a ticket to the title. But when a delegate is so incredibly dominant and radiant in the early stages of a pageant, and also on finals night, it's hard not to think, what the when they don't maintain that momentum. Here are 2 examples, starting with one of the most shocking exclusions in Miss Universe history.
We'll go down to Peru.
Via satellite.
In the 1982 pageant in Lima, Peru, the one to beat was undoubtedly the stunning South African Odette Scrooby, who won prelims more than a quarter of a point ahead of second place Miss USA, Terry Utley.
What kind of animals do you have?
We have about 9 dogs and 8 cats.
If you were to view Scrooby's performance on finals night without seeing her scores, many would have assumed she was on a clear path to the crown. As it turned out, she won evening gown and placed second in interview. But it was her inexplicably low swimsuit mark that's the topic of discussion here. We'll likely never know if there was actually something going on, but the length of time it took for her swimsuit score to appear on screen, let alone the score itself, seemed to indicate a technical glitch, to me at least. For someone who scored the highest of 77 delegates in the swimsuit prelims, and with no major fault in her performance on finals night, her 7.225 and 10th placing in that round just didn't add up. In the end, the math wasn't in her favour either. After the 3 semi-final rounds, and despite her strong showing in the other 2 disciplines, Scrooby finished in 6th place, an agonising 9 1/1000th of a point behind Utley, and thus she missed out on the top 5. It was Karen Baldwin who became Canada's first Miss Universe in Lima, and taking nothing away from her, but I'll forever wonder what the crown would have looked like on Odette's beautiful head. As I covered in my very first Pageant Nerd video, link is in the corner, one of the hottest ever favourites for a Miss Universe crown was Miss Venezuela 1991, Carolina Izsak.
Sawadika. Welcome.
In the lead up to Miss Universe in Bangkok the following year, Izsak was the overwhelming favourite amongst pageant watchers, and indeed, her elegance, perfect English and undeniable beauty saw her win each of the 3 preliminary competitions by a clear margin. She reached the semi-finals with the highest preliminary score in Miss Universe history, 9.477, an incredible 1/3 of a point ahead of second place Michelle McLean of Namibia. And on finals night, she almost repeated the clean sweep, winning swimsuits and gown and finishing second in interview.
Maybe the rain, or why not the flowers, the colors of the flowers inside in the sun of your house?
Her overall performance was so impactful, it led co-host Lisa Gibbons to remark,
Miss Venezuela, she is really pulling a number. She's out in front.
Venezuela!
Cruising into the top 6 in first place, Izsak, like South Africa's Odette Scrooby 10 years before her, appeared the likely winner. But in the judges' question round, her somewhat non-committal answer proved fatal for her title hopes.
If you could know one thing about your future, what would you like to know?
I wouldn't like to know anything about my future because I like to live my day every day as it's the only day I have in life. And I project my life, but I wouldn't like to know what's in the future.
And like Odette Scrooby, it was a narrow margin that kept Izsak out of the next round, in this case the top 3, 28 1,000th of a point. No wonder the Venezuelans label this their one true stolen crown. It in turn instigated debate over the judges' questions format, where delegates were scored on answers to questions unique to them. Miss USA, whose format typically mirrors that of Miss Universe in a given year, had a related controversy in 2001 when Miss Missouri Larissa Meek won both swimsuit and evening gown, only to be tripped up in the top 5 Q&A.
Is the media's need for controversy bad for sports?
I think the media shouldn't... Here we go. And so it's very difficult for me to answer that question because I'm an art major and I'm an artist.
A similar format was most recently a topic of discussion at Miss Universe 2019, and Miss Thailand's question in the top 5, deemed by some to be more difficult than her fellow delegates. Nonetheless, it was Michelle McLean's destiny to win Miss Universe 1992 for Namibia, and what an amazing queen she was, and continues to be to this day.
I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as.
They was the one who's very... Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think we can relate this back to education and how we are continuing to try to strive to...
Viral pageant answers are clearly not contained to the Miss Universe competition, as these examples demonstrate. For some title favourites, everything goes really well in the early rounds, with the odd exception. But more often than not, it's a dreaded Q&A round that sorts the women from the girls, and the queens from the runners-up. The following 2 examples weren't viral as such, but they saw frontrunners verbally stumble with the crown in sight.
Curacao, the first runner-up.
Despite being a tiny Caribbean nation, Curacao consistently sends spectacular delegates to Miss Universe, and none more spectacular than Verna Vasquez in 1997. Winning swimsuits and evening gown in prelims and qualifying for the semis first overall, Vasquez was indeed one of the title favourites. And while she repeated those exact same results on finals night, it was her interview performances that tripped her up. While her English was very good, it wasn't great under pressure, as evidenced by her 8th place in prelims and 3rd place in the semis, comparatively inferior to her other results. Here she is in the top 6 Q&A.
Other than being Miss Curacao, what achievement in your life are you most proud of?
As a woman, started a company of my own, and
you'll see a pattern in this video where the favourites have a minor stumble, but it has huge consequences. For Vasquez, she missed the top 3 by 14 1,000th of a point. By contrast, interview was Miss USA Brooke Lee's forte, irrespective of the fact English was her first language, unlike 4 of the top 6 that year.
If you could know one thing about your future, what would that be?
If I can relive the rest of my life the way I'm feeling right now, I think I'm going to die with a big smile on my face.
She nailed the final 2 rounds with her sense of humour and quick thinking, and in the end deservedly took the crown.
Welcome to Vietnam!
Miss Universe 2008 was memorable for a number of reasons. It was a spectacular pageant, the first ever in Vietnam, and featured a then relatively unknown pop singer called Lady Gaga performing during the swimsuit competition. How amazing would it be if she made a return visit to the pageant world?
Absolutely not.
It also featured one of the most competitive top 2s in the pageant's history, between 2 South American rivals no less. Colombia's Taliana Vargas was near perfect in swimsuit and evening gown. Her gown toil was imitated for years to follow. She was top scored in both rounds and the title favourite heading into the top 5. Venezuela's Diana Mendoza wasn't far behind, finishing second to Vargas in both swimsuit and gown, her performance in the latter also memorable for its choreography. In the top 5 Q&A, however, Vargas came undone.
If you could go back in time and change a moment in your past, what would that be and why?
In my life, I have been it's been a wonderful life for me. I have been happy every single day of my entire life because of my family. They're always thinking the best for everything. So everything perfect.
While Mendoza sparkled.
Do you believe men or women have it easier in life, and why?
Men think, they think that the faster way to go to a point is go straight. Women know that the faster way to go to a point is go to the curve and fixing every curve.
The rest, of course, is history.
The first runner-up is Colombia.
As I mentioned in part 1, without a rulebook of scoring for Miss Universe, the actual comparison of scores from year to year is slightly unfair. Scores in the early years were much lower than in the 1990s, but even between years the average score went up and down. Nonetheless, it's fun to make note of the absolute best of the best.
Miss Venezuela.
Okay, here is the other odds maker's pick. This makes 11 times in the last 12 years that Venezuela has made the semifinals.
Russia.
Next we have Miss Venezuela, Milka Chulina, 19-year-old university student majoring in international studies. What do you want to do when you complete your studies?
¿Qué deseas hacer cuando una vez que termine sus estudios?
Pues quiero comenzar a trabajar en la Cancillería de Venezuela y representarlo en una embajada en cualquier parte del mundo. Me gustaría que fuera una embajada que no tuviese mucha demanda.
Well, I would like to start working in the Chancery in Venezuela, and I would like to represent them in any of the embassies in the world. I would like for this to be an embassy where there is not too much demand.
What qualities are important for a diplomat?
¿Qué características son importantes para una diplomática?
Debes tener mucha paz interna para poder conseguir que todas las naciones se unan y poder conseguir el sueño de cada uno de nosotros, los seres humanos, que no existan fronteras ni idiomas que nos separen.
One must have a lot of inner peace in order to obtain the dream we all humans have, for all of us to be united, for there not to be any barriers that may separate us.
Gracias, señor. Please, for the judge over here. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Venezuela.
And Miss Colombia.
India. Oh, you're from a family of pilots. But say your goal is to, you want to jump from a plane. Are the pilots in your family that bad?
Well, not really. My father and my sister are both pilots, but I guess I've clocked in so many miles sitting behind, flying as a passenger, that I guess it's time that I jumped out. That's something I've always wanted to do, skydive.
All right. Now, India has had some very prominent female leaders. What makes women politicians different from men?
I think what makes women politicians different from men is a certain amount of sensitivity. I think the women are very strong in India. They're very well educated, those who are educated, and they're standing shoulder to shoulder with their men and making a mark in their own field.
This girl blows me away, completely blows me away.
She's absolutely breathtaking, and she really seems to have it all together. And the thing is, she's so calm. She just exudes.
Here's your final question. Right now, there's a protest going on right outside here calling the Miss Universe pageant disrespectful of women. Convince them that they're wrong.
I think pageants, like the Miss Universe pageant, gives us young women a platform to foray into the fields that we want to and forge ahead, be it entrepreneurship, be it the armed forces, be it politics. It gives us a platform to voice our choices and opinions and makes us strong, independent that we are today. Thank you.
That wraps up this video and my series, Scoring Miss Universe. As always, thanks for watching and for your support, words of encouragement, and video suggestions. I'll be back soon with another nerdy look at the world of beauty pageants, but in the meantime, it's goodbye from the Pageant Nerd.